Hi guys, VaulSC here, hope that you're doing well. We're going to take a look at another Conquest Last Argument battle report between the 100 Kingdoms and Dweghom. This is from last weekend where we had our game day in Auckland. And if you watched my most recent upload, which was 100k against Wadroon, this new battle rep I'm going to be doing is going to be with the same list because it was simply played on the same day as the other game, and I decided to just bring the one list for both games for that day. Makes it a bit easier with carrying and storage, bearing in mind that I'm showing up to the venue with all of my Conquest miniatures for that list in a big box, and then all of the Dweghom models which I'm loaning to another player to use, plus, you know, models that I borrowed from other people to do photography, and then all my terrain, so it takes several trips to transport everything from the car up the, you know, big flight of stairs to the gaming club. So just a bit easier if I play one list in a lot of cases. So we're going to be going back to it, and this is the list that I obviously played the last game with, and spoiler alert, you know, go watch the other game if you haven't already seen it, but the other game, unfortunately, was a bit of a beatdown. Well, not a beatdown, it was a very close game, but I did ultimately lose that battle against the Wadroon due to a little bit of poor play by myself, good play by my opponent, dice rolls, all the usual stuff. But I think part of it also is that this list isn't really the strongest one I could possibly come up with. I think the Sicarii is just a minimum small unit, is probably not optimal. Either you go all in on the Sicarii and you really get the Archangel in there, or you don't take them at all, I think is the way to go. But Crusading Noble Lord and the Crusaders with Caledburn, Eccentric fighting style, real beatstick guy. Theist Priest with Elysian Fragment. Glimmer of Faith really helps to get the Militia alive with Neophyte, giving them Fearless, which is very important. Water Mage, my current favorite mage. Really, the healing is just clutch, especially when you can score if you have her in the unit at full strength. Officer with a Ranger Corps, very mobile, very shooty, but I still don't know if I really prefer them over Hunter Cadre and Gilded Legion taking up a Hunter Cadre slot. Again, I'm not 100% sold on it, but Gilded Legion are very, very, very good. My opponent, who is starting to play Dweghom at Last Argument as well as First Blood, and slowly painting up the rest of his army for the models that he doesn't have painted yet. He's simply using my collection, but looking through it, we've got the Steelshaper and the Fireforged. He had 10 points left over for lava shots, which, you know, if you've got nothing to spend 10 points on, it's pretty decent. Hold Raegh, no Dragobud, but Dragobud, really the way to go with this guy if you can afford it. Fueled by the Furnace. Furnace is a real combo with that one, a really nice one there. But only 4 Initiates. This is partly because he's run out of models to use. So my collection of Initiates is being used for the Ardent Kerawegh. He's just started to paint up some of his own, but just doesn't have enough models there to get the full, like, 6 stands per character, and it is a lot of points. Ironclad Drake, of course, are very undercosted, very powerful monster. Kerawegh, you want the Flaming Oratory there. I think he's excellent in either the Flame Berserkers or the Initiates, but he will be running with the Initiates for this game. And Sorcerer, always very good on the Hellbringer Drake. Fire School is just excellent. So is Magma. I feel like Magma is more of a choice if you have the double Sorcerer on the Drakes, and one of them is the Warlord. But playing the Steelshaper Warlord for this one, mission is going to be off-center, if I can actually just find it. Off balance, excuse me, is what it's called. So this is one where there are just 2 zones, and you get 2 for scoring a zone, but a bonus one if you have them both at the same time. 4 for the objective markers, though, so there's a good way to come back from that, and 2 for the Warlord, and that's pretty much it. So when we look at the series of game photos, you can sort of see here that I'm remembering to use my flank with the Imperial Officer, who's going to be joining the Rangers, and then auto-picking the Militia to come on with the Priest joined, and then just rolling for the other 2 light regiments, including the Mage. So that's sort of my first turn. But for the scenario, you've got the 2 big zones on either side of the battlefield, and although you can't see it pictured, there's one more objective to destroy over there and over there, and these ones, of course, yield 4 points. These are 2 forests, and we've got an impassable tower there, and these are hills, so that's what the terrain is going to be looking like. So a bit more of a zoomed out photo. You can now see the 2 other objectives to my left there, with another forest right on the extreme left hand side, and of course my opponent's lovely army in the background. You can see the very heavy, very bright turquoise colors being the ones for his collection he's painted up recently, and we'll see some lovely close-up photos of those soon. And the more dull dull and drab and boring metallic washed stuff that I speed painted over the holidays at the end of 2022. That's me, of course. All right, so we're starting with the officers and the priest and the mage, just burning the character cards to get my opponent to deploy his whole army, and then all of his lights, I should say, and then I bring in the rest of my stuff. So he's just charging forward with the berserkers. These were painted by me, and they are charging straight for the objective. So on turn 2, he can run his berserkers onto the objective and then rancor them with the Kerawegh, the spell that makes them scoring. Just your classic opening strat from Dweghom. Also pictured are the ballistae, and you can sort of see the difference that actual effort makes when you paint your miniatures. These are actually painted by Andy and not me, so when you look at this photo, you can see that, you know, they look kind of cool. You know, they are heavily washed and dry brushed, but essentially this is batch painted with the entire regiment, just splashing the brush over a course of like half an hour, whereas this is just a lot more meticulously painted and really cool colors, and just the details on the faces just makes all the difference. So there you go. So he's deploying the ballistae right next to the the flame berserkers, and they're both planning on heading up towards that big old circular zone there. My army deploys here, well, all the light regiments anyway. We've got the militia central to the group there, and on the right-hand side, 1 unit of crossbows going onto the hill to go onto this objective on the right. On the left, we're sending in the mage and the crossbows with the Imperial Officer nearby. Plan is to roll up behind the mage with the Gilded Legion, or probably the Crusaders, because then the Imperial Officer and the shooting and the healing can support them as they go after the Flame Berserkers. But the other part of the strategy here is to anticipate the Flame Berserkers moving on to this big circular zone, and as soon as they do that, well, you know what's going to happen. We're going to shoot at them with the veteran crossbows here and the rangers here, and there's going to be a big old crossfire. We're going to wipe out the little boys there as they try to score. Turn 2, going in with all of the characters first, but the mercenaries, crossbowmen, in the center there. We're leaving the mage until last, just because I feel like there is a possibility of him moving up with his ballistae and shooting my crossbows, and I feel like I may as well have the opportunity to heal them back with the mage. Just gives me more fighting power later on, and leaves me with the option of being able to score with the mage, given that she will be in a 4 strength unit if she's healed him to full. Alrighty, so bringing in the Fireforged and the character there, the Steelshaper. The Dweghom tactic, of course, is not to go character first, then regiments. They do it the other way around, because if the character is on the battlefield at the time you draw the card, it can cast a spell on its own unit and generate one of those juicy cheating tokens for the auto pass elemental potency type thing. So there's the close-up. Again, this regiment painted by myself. And the Flame Berserkers, predictably, moving onto the zone. I thought one play here is just to keep them back and not move onto the zone at all, and just go, nah, I'm not going to bother scoring yet. But of course, he's moved onto the zone, so he will be in range of all of my my gun line. Now, the Kerawegh moving onto the battlefield, it's got one of these lovely rulers. Apparently, these are from Age of Sigmar or something like that. And this is to move the Kerawegh into range of the Flame Berserkers for Rancor. He can see past the hill. There's a bit of a gap there, so that's what's going to be allowing them to score if they survive. So, of course, the Mage's regiment now aim and fire, and they open up with all of their crossbow bolts onto the Flame Berserkers and do a bunch of damage to them. And then, of course, as you can see in the background, he's down to 2 stands. I've got the Imperial Rangers firing at them again, reducing them to 1 stand, which breaks them, and this happens after they have activated, so they can't automatically rally. And this is not, you know, the faction that gives you the free rally per turn, unless I'm mistaken. Be funny if I actually got that wrong, wouldn't it? Ardent Creed. First time a regiment becomes broken, they get a free rally. Okay, so if he was playing Ardent Creed, he'd get that, but of course he's playing a Tempered Steelshaper Warlord, so he doesn't have access to that rule. Alright, the beautifully painted ballistae moving around a little bit, and yeah, just getting a few pot shots at the crossbows in the distance. Militia marching up here, and just getting into a position where maybe next turn I can move into that forest there and threaten to charge the Fireforged and use Elysian Fragment to get through their shields, because that will give my regiment Cleave 3, which would be really nice to get through all the dwarf armor. Now, in behind the crossbows are my Crusaders. These guys are my 3D printed proxy regiment that I have been using for Order of the Sword because they're unreleased. And now, of course, Crusaders are out. These guys make a good stand-in for Crusaders until I can actually acquire and assemble the actual models. But rest assured, there is the character in the front row and to the right, and the rest of them are 5 stands of Crusaders. On the right-hand side, we're just moving up the crossbows a little bit further, and we're just getting into a position where whatever happens here, these guys are going to be within aim-shoot range of that far corner. So no matter what he touches the corner of that with, all of these 3 stands here are going to be in range to shoot it without having to move to get the +1 volley for aiming. We're now into turn 3, so at the bottom of the deck, we've got the Sicarii and the Gilded Legion coming on. They're going to come on late to try and ascertain where my opponent's stuff is going to be before I bring them on. And at the start of the deck, we've got effectively all of the characters. The Rangers are the only regiment that's going before the characters because we want to fire at that lone Flame Berserker command stand to try and pick it off before it gets healed by anything else. So there we have the overview, and when I say before it gets healed, remember he can use elemental potency tokens to automatically pass armor saves and heal the unit up. So with these guys going first, and if them shooting this little standard Flame Berserkers here, if he chooses to spend some tokens, which he's keeping track of here, I think he's got 2 or 3 of them, if he spends tokens to block some of those armor saves and heal the Berserkers back, just buys more time for him, so I want to kill him before that happens. And note that elemental potency tokens can only be used within an 8-inch bubble, or whatever the bubble is, of a sorcerer or a Steelshaper, not within range of the Kerawegh. So the Kerawegh is not actually giving elemental potency to that Berserker. It's only coming from this guy, and of course the Hellbringer who's not on the table yet. Alright, so that's where we're going to be doing it. So, over here we've got the Ballista activating first, moving up a bit, doing a little bit of shooting. And then we have the Rangers firing at the Flame Berserkers like we just talked about, blasting them. Fireforged, not really in a great position to do much damage to the Militia. The Militia do have hardened from the nearby battlefield orders of the Imperial Officer on the hill with the Imperial Rangers. Crusaders moving over and across and through the crossbows onto the zone to try and start scoring. They will be having a fight with the Kerawegh, and my hope is that with Caledburn and eccentric fighting style and all of the shooting I've got on the hill over here and over here, with the Mage healing this regiment, hopefully I can beat that Kerawegh's unit. Only problem with this matchup and my army list versus his is that he's also very durable, with defense 4 in front with a shield, and with the healing from the Steelshaper's supremacy, and with the shooting nearby coming from his crossbows, and with the Hellbringer Drake potentially coming in behind the Ardent Kerawegh and then blasting me with the fireballs and the Hellbringer Drake shooting and the character shooting. He could out-attrition me here, which is not really great. It's not a great matchup, but if he commits stuff elsewhere in the field, I might be able to get through with the Crusaders. Let's find out. So there's a bit of a frontal view of them. That's what this regiment looks like. 5 Crusaders plus Crusader Lord. Alright, so we've got the Kerawegh moving onto the zone, and unfortunately for me, even though I've managed to get onto the zone with exactly 5 stands of medium infantry there, he's moving onto the zone with 3 stands of medium infantry plus Rancor, which gives them +2 for scoring, if I recall correctly. Let's go and have a look at the exact wording for that. +2 stands for the purposes of seizing objective zones. By the way, it's free and successful if it's on infantry with Devout, which you do obviously have here. So a great way to build up tokens and pick this off automatically, even though we've got the Mage with the spell interference nearby. So it's likely to be a tie there. Now we have the Fireforged coming in, and this, honestly, this is actually really bad news for me that he's deciding to do this, because what's about to happen is there's going to be a massive scrum here, a big melee brawl between 2 relatively resilient units with healing on both sides and shooting on both sides. But if this unit of Fireforged move up here and they start shooting at effective range past the shields of the Crusaders, even with hardened, I don't think the Crusaders are going to be lasting particularly long. So that is problematic for me. Now, Militia marching forward into this forest, as we talked about, the forest gives them, obscured, helps them temporarily against the Fireforged, and then next turn we might be able to get a charge off in them. Bear in mind, I can use my supremacy from the Theist Priest to get blessed on these guys, and with Divine Purpose gives them another 2 inches of speed, so they can charge the Fireforged quite reliably, and obviously with that many attacks, with Blessed, with Cleave 3, we can eliminate the Warlord, gives me some points, and the Fireforged, which is honestly a pretty decent trade for this regiment. Already taken a little bit of damage there from the shooting, but we still have we'll still have the entire unit alive. Over here, the Mage just trying to get some healing done and shooting at the Kerawegh unit there on a hill, so she can see over the Crusaders, but he does have Tenacious in his defense 4, so not really much damage being done there. The whole Raegh on the extreme opposite side of the battlefield is marching on with his just small box there of 4 initiates, and they're going for this objective. Note that I pre-deployed my my crossbows up there ready to shoot at the whole Raegh's regiment. So over time they will do some work, but not before the Raegh score some points there, so I'm going to have to address that somehow. So that is the crossbows. They are in position, not really ready to shoot at the Raegh just yet, but they will shortly. Now, my opponent plays the Ironclad Drake, and I'd kind of forgotten about this deployment, and I'd forgotten he was coming on this particular turn, and that's on me. That's my problem. That is a mistake from me. It's not about game balance or about luck or anything. That is just, a blunder that I could have corrected. I think that probably a better idea for me would have been to move the Militia in against the Kerawegh unit, because it would have been less likely they get flanked by anything, and then I can use the Elysian Fragment for the Cleave 3 against the Kerawegh unit, not the Fireforged. That would have been a much more intelligent play, but unfortunately I had to be a doofus and exposed my flank here to the Ironclad, and pop myself in the forest in front of the Fireforged, basically straddling the middle line of the table. The reason why this is such a bad play is that the Ironclad can move up 14 when it comes to the table, and the next turn it can actually charge me in the flank, which will do quite a bit of damage there, thanks to impact hits and terrifying and all of that, and having to re-roll resolve checks from the side. Even though I have re-rolls on my failed resolve checks, I just really don't want to be taking resolve checks in general, and it locks them in place for the Fireforged to keep shooting at them, and it might force me to waste my Elysian Fragment on the dragon, and if I take a lot of casualties from that flank charge, I might not even have a lot of guys to use Elysian Fragment with. So this is just really a bad play from me. If we'd swapped this around and had the Crusaders going in, only exposing the front to the Ironclad Drake and just holding back a bit and giving me time to bring in the Hunter Cadre to shoot at it, that would have been brilliant. And then the Militia can simply charge the Kerawegh once the Kerawegh arrives in the zone and trade with them. That would have been way better. So over here, as I feared, the Hellbringer Drake coming in behind the Kerawegh unit, and this is going to be bad news for me because he's now giving spell interference out here. I've got spell interference, but the fireball coming from that character onto the Crusaders is going to be annoying, and of course the constant shooting at point blank, effective range from the Drake and the character is again going to be annoying, and it projects that elemental potency range onto the Kerawegh unit so that they can, spend 3 tokens, block 3 damage, heal for 3, not have to take resolve checks from those 3 damage, and it just continues like that. So yeah, this is going to be problematic. We talked about the whole Raegh moving on this objective, and the problem that I anticipated here is that although the crossbows can shoot at the whole Raegh as they approach, I've got nothing really to contest this, so I'm bringing in the Sicarii here. Thinking is to bring the Sicarii on to grab the objective myself, and then if I can actually have them attack the whole Raegh, it gives these guys more time to shoot, and with the combination of those 2 units at once, I might be able to get the better of that block of initiates, especially since we have the Supremacy turn coming up for the Theist Priest as well, which will affect the Sicarii. We have the Gilded Legion appearing, and I felt like the best place for them to arrive here is to anticipate the Ironclad Drake, which is going to charge into the flank there of these militia, and that was going to really cripple that unit. And at the very least, what I can do is I can follow it with a flank charge from the Gilded Legion into the Ironclad Drake and do quite a lot of damage to it. There will be a lot of attacks there with the Drillmaster, and of course, going into the flank, the Ironclad is going to take quite a lot of resolve checks that it will have to reroll successes on from the flank. So that's the move there. So going into turn 4, we're going with the Theist Priest first because if I don't activate the Theist Priest and the Militia straight away, the Ironclad is coming in. So if I win the roll, I can at least go Elysian Fragment, trade into the Fireforged, then take the hit from the Drake, and still move the Gilded Legion into the flank of the Ironclad later on. If I lose the roll, he is almost undoubtedly going to be going with the Ironclad Drake and pinching my Militia. What we have after that is the Crusaders, which will be charging the Kerawegh unit, so that's the Crusaders there, and then I've got the Mage to heal them after they inevitably take damage, and then the shooting's coming in after that. We'll save the Mercenaries on the right-hand side for the Raegh to come in on the right-hand objective, and the Gilded Legion to come in and deal with the Ironclad Drake. Note, we also have the Hunter Cadre arriving this turn as well, which will be very helpful against those two big dragons. This is an overview of the table at the start of turn 4. So let's just go through it systematically. My opponent will be wanting to go first with this Drake and charge those militia. I will want to go first and charge that unit of Fireforged, so it's really going to be quite important there. This is going to be a bit of a brawl. It doesn't really matter who attacks who first, but you can sort of see why this is a problem for me. I've got a crossfire here onto him, but he's very well defended. He's got the elemental potency, he's got tenacious, he's got defense 4. It's pretty bad. Whereas my Crusaders are base defense 2 with shields, and yes, they can have hardened, but you've got this unit shooting them, then this unit shooting at them, and then the Drake shooting at them, and then the Fireball spell, and then of course the initiates themselves. It's pretty ugly. So that's the problem. So my opponent does win the roll, and in comes the Ironclad Drake straight into the flank of the militia here, and he absolutely stomps them to death, as you can probably imagine. Doesn't completely delete the unit, but reduces them down to barely any guys left. So when I activate, it's a matter of essentially popping the Fragment, rallying the unit, the command stand and the character can attack the Drake. They can soften him up with the Legion Fragment, which is helpful because, I do need to kill it this round. So with the Gilded Legion attacking the Drake, after it's been weakened a little bit by a few Cleave 3s onto it, that's something, but it certainly wasn't really ideal. I did want to win the roll here, and that didn't happen. Over here, we've got the Drake activating and starting to blast the Crusaders, so already beginning to take some damage. And then the Crusaders charge into the Kerawegh unit. We have the character really walloping with the Caledburn there. He's got Cleave 2 naturally, and opponent has to re-roll all of the failed defense roll, or the successful defense rolls. The problem is, though, that after that attack goes through, he is able to specifically use his cheating tokens to block those particular attacks, so he doesn't really have to re-roll as many, and he can use Tenacious on one of those failed rolls as well. So my understanding of the rules is that if my rule says that you have to re-roll a successful armor save because of Caledburn, and your rule says you can just treat a failed save as a success due to Tenacious, then Tenacious is the rule that wins that kind of interaction. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my reading of it. So that made this particular attack rather inefficient, and he really did not take very much damage on the initiates. So attacking back, of course, he's got the character with the spell, and he's got his initiates attacking me, and I'm starting to lose regiments. Guys, I'm down to like 3 stands already. Behind, though, we've got the Mage, who can clean up. She's got a little bit of healing to bring back some Crusader wounds there, and also do some shooting, but again, against Defense 4 and Tenacious, etc., it's not great. What we can do is move on to the zone, because she does count as scoring and contesting. And we want to now start shooting at that Hellbringer Drake, because my worry is that if the Crusaders die and the Mage gets cleared out, he can just camp that zone with a unit of Fireforged and start moving around to the other side of the battlefield with the Sorcerer, and the late game Hellbringer Sorcerer just becomes a big snowball, and we want to kind of deal with it. Alright, so we have the Fireforged. They have not been deleted by the Militia like I was hoping to do, so now they are starting to shoot me, which is not great. Over here we have the Mage, just doing her thing. We talked about what her role was earlier. Over here we've got the Ranger Corps turning around. And this is because I have not yet inflicted enough damage onto that that Ironclad Drake to be sure that the Gilded Legion will kill it when they charge at the end of the turn. So we're flipping them around with Liquid Formation and shooting at the Ironclad Drake. I suppose I didn't really need to turn around, did I? Because Liquid Formation lets you shoot backwards, but it is what it is. The Drake takes more damage, and now we are very likely to take it down with the Gilded Legion. Over here, so the Mage has brought back the Crusaders to 4 stands, but I just get a feeling they're not going to live forever. Over here, they are then after they're reduced to after they're increased back to 4 stands, they're reduced back down to 1 stand, and this is from a lot of stuff shooting at them and attacking them, and of course you can see the initiates spiking them with some spears also. Over here, this is where things get really bad. We've got the Fireforged moving in. These guys couldn't quite get a line onto the Crusaders, so they've had to double march around the sides, but they are still a very severe threat. Where are we? Okay, so the Ballistae moving a little bit further forward, able to get a bit of shooting done on possibly the Mage's regiment. Sicarii on the other side of the battlefield, moving onto the zone, getting ready to deal with the Raegh as the Raegh comes a bit close. But for now, we just want to be scoring and getting some points on the board. Also, got the men-at-arms here. I've decided just to sneak up on the Ballistae on the left-hand side. Next turn, it's going to be the Imperial Officer's Supremacy unit for a free reform and Opportunists, so this sort of prevents the Ballistae from turning around towards the crossbows a little bit further, and it might allow me to delay what he's doing on this particular flank for a bit. The Raegh jumping onto the objective here next to the Sicarii. Sadly for me, this is going to mean that it's contested, so there is that. But next turn, I will hopefully get an opportunity to attack him with Sicarii and shoot at him from a very close range with the crossbows, and that should hopefully even up the odds between those two regiments there. And that's what we're doing right now, shooting at him with the crossbows, killing 1 stand, and just getting ready to try and win this fight here involving the Sicarii. End of the turn, we have the Gilded Legion charging into the Ironclad Drake. We have softened it up with the Theist Priest and the Militia, well, the 1 stand of them using Elysian Fragment, and the shooting from the Imperial Officers, Imperial Ranger Corps Regiment. So once you hit with the 16 attacks from the front and the 9 Relentless Drill sort of support attacks at Clash 4, Cleave 1, the Drake does eventually go down. Nice photo though, but the Drake is luckily removed, and, you know, I needed that. So at the end of this turn, this is sort of how things are looking. So on the right-hand side, feeling optimistic because the Sicarii can charge in here, and they've got the ability to do a little bit of work, and then the crossbows can shoot here, which is great. The Gilded Legion can go after these guys. One trick I've got up my sleeve here is that with the Imperial Officer having the Supremacy turn next, I can get that free reform on the Gilded Legion to spin them around and widen them to get them within charge range. Then I can swing around into the Fireforged, beat them up with all the Gilded Legion, and then after I've done that, I can then go after this zone and start scoring here. On the left-hand side, the plan is just to use the crossbows and also the Hunter Cadre, which have recently showed up, to put all of their shooting into the Drake. If I can somehow take it down, possibly by even moving the Rangers around here and boxing it in, if I can eliminate that, then we'll end up with a situation where he's camping this side of the board and I'm camping this side of the board, and I might be able to outplay him and outshoot him by just keeping the Sicarii back here and gunning him with all of my crossbows and possibly be my Gilded Legion, and that will be my hope for victory. Here's a look at the left-hand side of that sort of setup. So the men-at-arms will keep these guys at bay and tie them up while I'm executing the plan that I just talked about. Alrighty, so we're going to go with the Gilded Legion last. They're going to be going up against the Fireforged. Although I think after I took this photo, I decided to change my mind about that. So when you look at the photo now, we're going with the Gilded Legion towards the middle of the turn because we want to hopefully get the attack on the Fireforged before they do their thing. It'll be Sicarii as the first card to go up against the whole Raegh, and then the Men-at-Arms trying to get the jump on the Ballista before they get shot, and then the Crusaders, and then the Mage to potentially heal something, and then all the shooting, alright? Okay, so I managed to win the roll, Sicarii charging in against the whole Raegh, but not really doing as much damage as I would have liked. This is a very defensive unit of initiates, and the Sicarii didn't really get through that armor, so yeah, just still having to deal with the Raegh attacking me back in a moment. And that does happen. We do have the Raegh reduced to, I don't know, 3 stands and then probably 2 after the crossbows shoot at him. Fireforged able to get a bit of shooting done against the Gilded Legion, but they do have a benefit of Hardened from the nearby Imperial Officer, so not too much damage getting done there. Over here, I managed to get the jump on the Ballista with the Men-at-Arms. That's great. These guys are able to swing pretty effectively in close combat and do maybe 1 stand's worth of damage to the Ballista, which is a good start. Over here, we have the Initiates going up against the Crusaders. We have enough, really, to deal with the Crusader at this point, and these guys are about to overrun the position to go into the Mage. With the Crusaders destroyed, the Mage now can actually try to heal her own unit and then move up to put some shooting up against the Hellbringer Drake. We're checking range there to see if we're in effective range. Can't remember whether that was the case, but this is a veteran unit, so they do get a bonus from effective range. But either way, moving through to try and get some shooting on the dragon there, and just reducing its health total down by a little bit. Over here, lovely photo, the Ballistae trying to fix bayonets and just prod back at the Men-at-Arms, but got to take my hat off to this guy's painting. They look really, really neat up close. Over here, so this is my plan in action. We have the Imperial Officer Supremacy turn with the free reform from the Imperial Regiments. That's going to turn the Gilded Legion to a big old line, 5 wide, with one guy holding up the rear, and then I pivot around so that the corner of the regiment is just within automatic charge range of the Fireforged. So after the charge is successful, they swing around with a big old wheel to maximize frontage with this regiment, and they start swinging their pikes. And that does a lot of damage to the Fireforged, but doesn't eliminate them, which is annoying because he's still got elemental potency tokens for the auto blocks and the heals, and they have got, you know, decent resolve. They've got a lot of armor, and they've got 5 wounds each, so unfortunately still going through the Dweghom very slowly. Over here, the Kerawegh able to put Rancor or whatever he needs to do onto his unit there. And then we've got the Hunter Cadre. They're moving up behind the Mage's regiment because the Dragon is on a hill and it's, you know, size 3. So we're going to shoot over top of the Mage. We can use Fiend Hunter to get that damage onto the Drake. We do have to kill it, otherwise it's just going to go on a rampage and generate more elemental potency, etc., etc., etc. Over here, the Raegh attacking back against the Sicarii. Lovely little picture there. I did paint that Raegh, but my opponent has got his own version on the way. And unfortunately, cutting down a stand of these guys. So if he manages to win this fight and shrug off the crossbows, I'm in a lot of trouble. Over here, so we have the Imperial Officers regiment just reforming and just trying to get a line of sight on the dragon. All shooting needs to go into the Hellbringer Drake at this point, but he still is able to use 1 or 2 tokens here and there to heal it up and block damage, and it's like, just not quite killing it yet. And then, at this point in the game, I went and took a bathroom break, and, you know, I recharged my camera battery a little bit, and I talked to my opponent about what the best move for him was here, and he spent a good 5-10 minutes thinking about it, because he's got to decide what to do with this Drake. And the thing is that if he leaves it in the position that it started at in this turn, which is there, and it's facing that way, that puts him in range for more shooting from this unit, and this unit, and you know that everybody's going to fire at him there. If he turns around, I might still get range with the crossbows, but it just starts to become slightly more awkward for the other two regiments to get a good line of fire onto it. And that is assuming I win the roll next turn. The 9 there, I believe that's the wounds that are inflicted. So how many does that leave him with? Drake starts with 14, so he's got 5 wounds remaining on the Drake at the time of this photo. So you can imagine that it's only going to take 1 volley from one of these regiments to potentially kill it. If he wins the roll next turn, the Drake can then just run away out of range of all of these regiments, and it's going to be hard for me to catch him. He could also have moved back behind the hill and just forced me to go through the Kerawegh unit, and then, you know, if he wins the roll, he could just always move the Kerawegh into combat with the crossbows, and then it sort of blocks the route there for everybody else. So a few good options for him there, but after thinking about it hard, he decided to make this play here, just giving him an escape route. So over here, we've got the crossbows moving onto the zone purely just to contest the zone against the Raegh. I'm still not really leading on scoring anything, and then next turn he could potentially charge the crossbows. So what I have to do is I have to attack the Fireforged with those Gilded Legion in the background, and then turn around, and then only the turn after that will I be charging the Raegh's unit. So everything just going too slowly for 100 Kingdoms at this point. Very tough game. Alrighty, and over here we have the Sorcerer trying to shoot a fireball there at the Gilded Legion. Alright, and Fireforged, mind you, trying to get some shots off against, I think, the Mage's crossbow unit. So this is an overview here where you can sort of see the trouble. This unit is scoring, and they'll be going after these guys here. The Mage has been completely wiped out. And I must note that this was a very significant moment in the game, and I think this is the point here where I almost decided to concede. And that is that if we go to that previous photo here of the Fireforged, what's happened is they've moved and taken a shot at the Mage's unit. So this is a regiment that can put out barrage 14 with volley 2. He decided to aim and shoot, so that is effectively 13 shots on 3s. Every hit will punch through my armor, but he's got to get through 12 wounds, right? My opponent rolled a batch of dice that came up, and like 90%, if not all of them, were 3s or less. Somehow miraculously succeeding in, you know, doing 12 wounds to that Mage's unit. So when you look at this photo, the Mage and the crossbows were previously here in a position where A, they can shoot at the Hellbringer and kill it. B, they can block the charge from the initiates into the Hunter Cadre behind them. But they're not there anymore because he rolled so incredibly well with this unit that I'm just completely shut out of the game now. So that's just the Mage deleted. But we'll play on. There is a hope. So over here, we're going to go with the other crossbows first to try and shoot at the Raegh's regiment, then the Hunter Cadre to try and take down the Hellbringer Drake, and then the Gilded Legion to try and bust through the Fireforged. Men-at-Arms, then the Ranger Corps at the end to try and get after that Drake. So over here, the Drake is moving into the forest, giving it obscuring and doing some shooting against the Gilded Legion. Hunter Cadre moving up, shooting at the Drake, but again, not killing it because he's built up some more tokens and I'm shooting through a forest, etc., so not great. We've got the initiates here, obviously able to protect the dragon against the Hunter Cadre, and they charge in there as you'd expect them to. Over here, the Gilded Legion are able to turn around after killing the Fireforged, so the reform maneuver allows them to stay a little bit further away from that dragon, and then they can charge the Raegh, hopefully in the next turn. We have the Fireforged shooting at the Men-at-Arms, doing a bit of damage to them, and the Men-at-Arms trying to desperately attack back against the Ballistae. Love this photo, just a lovely, bright little photo there, and you can see the difference between my painting and his painting. My guy obviously needs a little bit of work done to his face there. Over here, the Raegh with his one stand of initiates charging the crossbows, and annoyingly, like the Raegh's so good in close combat just with his one character stand attacks, and my unit having basically no armor while defense 1, absolutely getting obliterated just by this valiant last stand of boys here. We then have the Imperial Officer turning around and just trying to put a few pot shots at the dragon through the hill, setting up here where I might be able to charge it and get it in close combat. This unit is terrible in close combat, but they're going to do more hits against it in the forest than they would with shooting. That's why in the next turn I'm trying to go with the Rangers first and trying to charge the Drake, because if I can kill the Drake, maybe that's my last hope of doing it, and that's the battlefield. So the Initiates are scoring from that zone, about to kill the Hunter Cadre, and in the other zone I'm about to lose my my other crossbows, and the Raegh is still scoring, so my opponent well in the lead on points there. So you can see the Drake there, able to activate and get a shot off against the Gilded Legion, killing even more of them. My Imperial Rangers charging through at the Drake, trying to get some close combat damage onto it, but I don't think that I even managed to really kill it there. The Men-at-Arms doing quite well to finish off the Ballistae, but now they can get shot at by the Fireforged just behind them. And actually, what happens here is we're able to chop them down, then charge. So I was able to get into combat with the Fireforged, with the Men-at-Arms as well. Too little, too late. Not really enough to swing the game in my favor. So here we have the Initiates able to turn around after destroying the Hunter Cadre. They are able to score from every turn on from here on. And although my Imperial Officer has finally dismantled the Hellbringer in the forest there, his shooting is not going to be enough to get through the Ardent Kerawegh, especially with Defense 4 and Tenacious, so it's just not happening. And over here we have the two stands of Gilded Legion charging the whole Raegh, but with just two stands there, I mean, I'm not going to be able to exactly turn around and go after the Ardent Kerawegh later in the game, and it's just getting too late in the day. So with this sort of situation here, where on the right-hand side, I'm finally getting some scoring done with the Gilded Legion. He's able to score with the Initiates on the left-hand side, and I've really only got my Imperial Ranger Corps to attack him with. This is the end point of the game where I have to concede. Just can't win here with the situation. So that was the end of the game day. Played 2 games with the Theist Imperialist, and lost both of them. Again, it comes down to my lazy, blundering play and slightly poor list, but my opponent's actually starting to learn and do really well and take some of my advice on list building and plays. I gotta tell you, this game day that I went to with this list and played those 2 games, I had a load of fun. I just had a blast, even though I got beat down. Well, it's not fair to say beatdown. Like, both of those games were very close, and that's how I prefer Conquest to be. I don't really enjoy, you know, beating somebody up and just winning on turn 5, and obviously I don't like being absolutely thrashed. But it's fun if you get to turn 8 or 9 and the game's still going. Regardless of whether you win or lose, so long as there's a lot to be learned and a lot of really interesting back and forth possessional play to go through. So we're going to be having another game day next month, and I'll be trying to get some more games in between now and then. Also entering the International Tabletop Simulator tournament with maybe 14 to 16 players in it. I'll be playing with Drune for that one, and I will be reporting on it a little bit, depending on how things go, possibly in a month or 2, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed the bat rep, and we'll see you again soon.